when you put this into context and you talk about the Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact that was just signed a few months ago,
Yes,
is Saudi Arabia basically calling in its investment?
I think yes. But you know, I have to laugh about this mutual defense pact.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Saudi Arabia,
No,
but
I haven't.
almost the entire Saudi military is Pakistanis. No Saudi's going to join the military unless they're going to make him a general. You
Uh,
know, there are a lot of Bedouins in the Saudi military, but you go straight in as an officer. If you're a Saudi citizen, you're going to start as an officer. There are no privates or corporals who are Saudi. They're all Pakistani, all of them. It's the Pakistanis that protect Saudi Arabia
but how realistic is a
on
nuclear
on the
umbrella, though?
ground.
But how realistic is a nuclear umbrella, though? That's what is, I mean, that at least some of the doomsayers in India think of it like that.
Yeah, I don't think it is realistic.
Yeah.
No, I
So
don't think it's realistic.
when this AQ Khan thing happened and it was brought up, what was this Saudi Arabia hold on America? Now you have Saudi terrorists taking out the 9/11 towers,
That's right.
Saudi Arabia actively lobbying to protect one of the most dangerous men, at least in the last quarter century, at least in this region. And then
Yes,
eventually Pervez Musharraf also pardoning AQ Khan, therefore ending all investigations. What is this
that's right.
connection that America has with dictators and this love story?
That is one of the most difficult questions that you could ask. You know, we like to try to convince the world that we are a shining beacon of hope for democracy and human rights and equality, and it's just simply not true.
Hmm.
Um, our foreign relations, um, our foreign relations are based on our national needs at any given moment. We don't do things because they're the right thing to do.
Hmm.
We do them because they happen to be good for us that day, which is why we get into bed with so many dictators around the world, which is why we get into bed with so many politicians who are so extreme in their personal politics that it makes no sense to the American people. Why are we in bed with Benjamin Netanyahu right now
Right.
when
Right.
we've known Netanyahu since the 1980s as an
Yes.
extremist?
Yes.
Because it's the easy thing to do and it serves our purposes, today. That may change tomorrow, but today it's okay. I worked for an ambassador in Bahrain who was an absolutely lovely man. And he said one day, I still remember this. I was young and impressionable, and he said, our foreign policy in Saudi Arabia really is as simple as we buy their oil and they buy our weapons.
That's it.
That's it. That's it. That's the basis. He said, you spend your career in the Middle East. I've spent my entire adult life in the Middle East. He said, I don't like the Saudis. They don't like us. But we pretend to have this special relationship, right? Even in the American embassy, my first overseas tour was in Saudi Arabia. And I
Hmm.
remember an enormous photograph. It had to be 2 meters across. And it was President Franklin Roosevelt and King Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the founder of Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
in the back of a car together. And this was supposed to be emblematic of our special relationship with the Saudis. But when I first arrived in Saudi Arabia, um, I was placed in embassy housing. So I was living in an apartment in the diplomatic quarter, and I would walk a block or two to the embassy and go in the back entrance of the embassy. And every day, my first 3 days, I would say to this Saudi guard, national Saudi Arabia National Guard officer standing there, Salamu alaikum. The
But
response, of course, is Walaikum assalam.
yes.
He would ignore me. So the next day, I went in and I said, Salam alaikum.
Hmm.
And he ignored me. The third day, I went in and I said, Sabah al khair wa assalamu alaikum. Good morning
I-
and peace be upon you. He ignored me. And I stopped and I said to him, "What's your problem?" And he said to me in English, he said, "You are hired help. We paid for you to come here and defend us. We are not friends."
Hmm.
And I said, "You know what? You're right. We aren't friends. I don't like you, and I don't like any of your compatriots. None of them."
Right.
And then I never spoke to him again. But that was the US Saudi relationship in a nutshell.
Do you think Saudi Arabia knows this now? Because with this mutual defense pact, again, I keep coming back to the nuclear thing and them sort of, basically seeking nuclear deterrence with the help of Pakistan. Then it appears with the new with this Trump regime that a certain amount of American retrenchment has happened in the
Yeah,
region, where it's
yeah,
almost like a hemispheric defense now that America is focusing on. So Saudi Arabia always had the US for its back. Now that US is not, at least it appears that it's not highly dependent on Saudi oil, Saudi energy. Do you think Saudi Arabia is doing this as an insurance pact?
absolutely yes. And it's not just Saudi Arabia, it's Kuwait as well. Kuwait last year made a purchase of, not made a purchase, made a sale of oil to China, and for the very first time ever, took payment in yuan.
Yuan. Hmm.
Yeah. First time ever that payment was not in dollars. So I think everybody is coming around to the notion that here in the United States, we're sitting on an ocean of oil. Okay. We have shale oil enough to last us 500 years. We don't need Middle Eastern oil. We buy it because it's good for relations,
Yes.
because we buy it and then they buy our weapon systems.
Right.
So we continue to do that. But when push comes to shove, we don't need the Saudis anymore.
And
We
that's what.
don't. And so they're hedging their bets. They're
Yeah.
they're improving their relations with China. They're
Mm.
improving their relations with India, which is a huge market and in need of oil.
Yes.
And if the Indians are going to have problems, especially from the United States, buying Russian oil or Russian natural gas, oh, they should just buy it from Saudi Arabia. It makes it even easier.
Right. Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think we're
Yeah.
seeing a transformation here in the way the
A
world
very
operates.
dynamic geopolitical shift is being viewed here. That's why conversations like
Agreed.
this with you, someone in the field and who has historical context, I mean, it's fantastic. So we had this hot war with Pakistan in May, and it happened, and the nuclear question came up again. And I thought, what better person than you to sort of, illuminate a little bit more about Pakistan's nuclear weapons and everything. So you were there on the ground in Pakistan in 2002, 2003. We also saw Pakistan sort of lurch into almost like a civil war with the various terrorists it had propped up in its backyard. Was there ever a fear that these nuclear weapons would fall into terrorist hands?
Yes. When I was stationed in Pakistan in 2002, I was told unofficially that that the Pentagon controlled the Pakistani nuclear arsenal. That Musharraf had turned control over to the United States because he was afraid of exactly what you just described. But the Pakistanis in the intervening years, and remember, I was there 23 years ago. Over the last 23 years, the Pakistanis have come to say that is absolutely not true. The United States has nothing to do with the Pakistani nuclear arsenal, that Pakistani generals are the ones that control it. So I don't know if that's true, then I would be very worried about who is in charge politically in Pakistan.
No,
You know, for example, Imran Khan. I can't believe that I forgot his name.
who's in
Um,
jail? A
who's
popular
in
leader who's in
jail,
jail. Yes, yeah,
right? And still wildly popular.
wildly, yeah.
He told us when he was still the prime minister, he said, "Listen, I've got this political situation here domestically. I'm going to start blaming you for everything." And the ambassador laughed and said, "We get blamed for everything anyway, so we don't care." So everything that happened, it was the United States' fault. And it was the US, they turned their backs on us. And the US did this and the US did that. And then they arrested him anyway. So he got a message out to the US government saying, "Can you help me get out of this?" And we went to Jemima Goldschmidt, his whatever her name
Ex-wife.
was,
Yeah.
ex-wife. And she went to Pakistan and asked them if they would release him. And they said no. So, like you, I'm worried about continued disagreement in Pakistani politics that has the potential to spill into the streets because the Pakistanis have a tendency to get themselves spun up
Hmm.
and people die during demonstrations and there are attacks against political figures and assassinations and the country is not known for its transformative leaders making positive decisions. I'll tell you another thing. When Benazir Bhutto was in exile in Dubai,
Hmm.
I went to see her with a senior officer. I went as the note taker, and she lived in this $5 million palace on the Gulf, and we were sitting in the front room, the salon of the house, and we heard a car pull up, and she said her exact words. So help me God, if he came home with another Bentley, I'm going to kill him.
Zardari,
Yeah.
her husband.
And I said to my boss afterwards, she makes $60,000 a year. She lives in a $5 million house and he has a collection of Bentleys. Aren't they ashamed of themselves? Like, how can they go back to Pakistan and look the Pakistani people in the face when their people don't even have shoes and enough food to eat? Like, I understand corruption is a problem there, but that level of corruption? Come on. Well, those are the kinds of politicians that the Pakistani people have to deal with.
You talked about Benazir Bhutto. You talked about Zardari. Zardari is the current president over here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now going back to the nuclear issue, in this war that happened in May, India for the first time escalated it to a level where we had cruise missiles flying into Pakistan with direct hits at
Yes.
the time. And from the Indian side, this constant line is said from from the prime minister level up. He says that we call their nuclear bluffs. You said that you were told unofficially that you knew that America knew where the nukes were. Do you think Americans told India that the control of Pakistani nukes also lies with America?
I doubt it. I doubt it because of the vociferousness with which the Pakistanis have come out publicly and said that they control the nukes. But I can tell you definitively
Hmm.
that the State Department was telling both sides, if you're going to fight, fight. Keep it short and keep it non-nuclear. If nuclear weapons are introduced, the whole world is going to change. And so I think there was restraint on both sides. The Pakistanis need to come to a policy conclusion that there's nothing positive for them in
Hmm.
fighting India.
Right.
Nothing, literally nothing good will come of an actual war between India and Pakistan because the Pakistanis will lose.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. They'll lose. And I'm not talking about nuclear weapons. I'm
Okay.
talking just about a conventional war. The Pakistanis will lose.
Right.
And so there's no benefit to constantly provoking the Indians.
Right. Last question on the nuclear issue. I promise I'll move on after that. Uh, okay, let's nix the control part. You doubt that the actual control, but there was a New York Times article written by the New York Times editor at that time for national security that
Yes.
that President Bush had folded in hundreds of millions of dollars in grants to Pakistan to safeguard their nuclear assets. The New York Times knew about this program, but decided to sit on it for a number of months before they finally published it. So even if they don't control it, did they give technology to safeguard it?
Most likely, yes.
And what would that
Yes.
technology
And
be?
that I don't know.
Okay.
It's not my area of expertise, and I couldn't speculate. But I will tell you that the fact that the New York Times sat on the article is a way of confirming its truth.
Hmm.
And what I mean is when one of the big outlets, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times or one of the big broadcast news networks, when they come across information like this, it's big and it involves classified information, they always ask the White House to confirm or to deny.
Mm.
If the information is truly classified and it's sensitive, the National Security Advisor will ask for a meeting. Sometimes the meeting is with the president and the head of the newspaper. Usually it's the National Security Advisor. And they'll say, look, yes, it's true, but it's so sensitive that if you publish it, it will put lives in danger. Almost always, they'll sit on the article until enough time passes that people aren't in danger anymore. The fact that they sat on the article is confirmation that it was true.
Mm. Now, let's go back to your time when you were there and you caught Abu Zubaydah. This, I'm sure you would be in line for promotion after capturing
Uh,
number three in Al Qaeda, right?
yes.
What happened after that? What's your story after that?
Well, I got a medal, I got a huge award, and then I was denied promotion. And I was shocked. And I shouted at my boss, what do I have to do to get promoted around here? Do I have to catch bin Laden? I just caught the number 3 in Al Qaeda and I'm denied promotion. Well, it turned out that the reason why I was denied promotion was that as soon as I got home from Pakistan, they asked me if I wanted to be trained in the torture techniques so I could be used to torture prisoners. And I said, no, I have a moral and ethical problem with it. I believe it's illegal. I want nothing to do with it. Of the 14 people that they asked, I was the only one who said no.
Mm.
And so the director of the Counterterrorism Center, Jose Rodriguez, a monster, said that I had, his words, displayed a shocking lack of commitment to counterterrorism. So in the meantime, I got the job of a lifetime and I became the executive assistant to the deputy director for operations. And I said, I was passed over for promotion. He said, what? He said, how? And I said, Jose said that because I wouldn't torture these guys. He said, I'll promote you. And he just signed a promotion. And so I was promoted instantly. So there were those in the
Setup.
in the chain of command that were thinking correctly on this issue of torture.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they were shunted aside, and a decision was made that torture was going to be an official policy.
Right. But you blew the whistle on it.
I did. The truth though is that I just assumed somebody else would blow the whistle. And
Right.
so I remained silent. And then I resigned from the CIA in 2004. My resignation was effective in 2005, and still nobody would blow the whistle. And so finally in 2007, a reporter called me,
Mm.
and I decided I was going to do it. I was just going to just tell the truth.
And
So
yeah.
that's what I did.
And then one would think that you would be a hero for free speech and blowing the whistle on this. But then the Obama administration, ironically, a campaign that was run on hope and change, and maybe
Ha!
shedding some light and some transparency, uh,
Right.
they are the ones who actually went ahead and prosecuted you.
Yes, indeed. For a number of reasons. First of all, it was John Brennan.
Yes.
John Brennan, who at first was the Deputy National Security Advisor for Counterterrorism and then the CIA director in the Obama administration. It was John Brennan who specifically went after me. John and I always hated each other. I've known John Brennan for 35 years. I've always hated the guy. I thought he was in over his head intellectually.
Yeah.
And he was one of the founders, one of the fathers of the torture program. And so you had a president who had 2 years of experience. Can you imagine that? To think about that for a moment.
Mm.
He was in the US Senate for 2 years. That was his only qualification to be president of the United States. And so he was very susceptible to the advice and the biases of the people around him. Well, John
Mm.
Brennan was his lead intelligence advisor. And John Brennan said, we need to stop these leaks because we're going to start doing things like using drones to kill people. We need to put this guy Kiriakou in prison. And so
Right.
that's exactly what they did.
He didn't have any experience. He was in Saudi Arabia as well with when he was in the CIA, right?
Oh, Brennan had lots of experience. Obama had no experience.
Yeah.
Obama was in the Senate for 2 years before he was elected president and had never, ever read a classified CIA document. He had never seen one. Yeah, utterly unprepared to become president.
And what led to eventually you spending 24 months in jail? I know I'm fast forwarding a bit, but
That's okay. What they started doing was they knew I hadn't committed espionage. And
right.
so the espionage charges were dropped eventually. They waited until I went bankrupt and then they dropped the charges. But what they did is they tapped my phones and they went through my emails, 3 years worth of emails, and they were able to find one single email where I confirmed the surname of a former colleague. And they said, aha, that's a crime. And so that's the crime that I pleaded guilty to. So they offered me 30 months in prison. I would serve 23. And I said to my attorneys, I'm going to turn it down. I want to go to trial. I haven't done anything wrong.
Hmm.
And they said that if I went to trial and I was convicted, it would be a lot longer than 23 months. I said, realistically, how much time am I looking at? If I lose,
Hmm.
they told me 12 to 18 years.
Yeah.
And so I took the deal.
Where would they bring the trial though? In America?
Yeah, it was in the Eastern District of Virginia. And this was another thing.
This would be a jury in Eastern District of Virginia. Oh, so Washington, D.C. insiders.
CIA, Pentagon, FBI, DIA. This is where they live and work. And
Yes.
so that would have been my jury.
So the chances are that you could face conviction.
If you've
And a
ever
longer
heard
term.
of,
Yeah.
oh yeah, if you've ever heard of O.J. Simpson,
Yes, of course.
he was so I hired O.J. Simpson's jury consultant.
Okay. Yeah.
And we got him a security clearance. He went through 10,000 pages of documents. And finally, we had a meeting with all the attorneys. I had 11 lawyers and O.J. Simpson's jury consultant. And he said, if we were in any district in America other than the Eastern District of Virginia, I would say, let's do it. We're going to win. But the Eastern District of Virginia, your jury is going to be CIA, DIA, FBI, Pentagon. He said, you don't have a prayer. Take the deal. And so I
Hmm.
took the deal.
Now that you're out, you're independent, and you are a commentator of a very renowned commentator who has first-hand experience, does the CIA look at you with some trepidation? Are they happy when you talk about all these things? What's life after prison, after blowing the whistle and talking about your experience?
Well, I still have friends inside the CIA, and we've talked about that. The truth is, most of my detractors are either dead or retired because we're talking about, my actions were 20 years ago. So they're mostly dead or retired. And now that they're retired, nobody pays any attention to what they say.
Hmm.
Um, the position inside the CIA has changed about me. A friend of mine told me just a few weeks ago that she was participating in a briefing, a security briefing, and they showed a slide with my picture and it said, the insider threat. And she said everybody started booing. Boo, boo. And the instructor said, wait, why? Why is everybody booing? And she said, he's not a threat. He's the whistleblower. We should aspire to be like him. And she said in the next running of the briefing that they had taken the slide out.
That's your
So
win, right?
I won. It took 20 years,
Yeah.
but I won.
We just celebrated Diwali over here in India, the triumph of good over
Yes,
evil. This
that's
is it.
right.
This is it right here.
That's
I
exactly right.
Do you, so I'm sure you're now trying to get a pardon.
I am actively.
How's
Yes.
that going?
And frankly, Donald Trump is the only president who would have the guts to do it. The
Hmm.
rest of them are just in the grasp of the CIA. I have very, very important Republicans who support me. Tucker Carlson, Judge Napolitano, excuse me,
Hmm.
Dr. Phil, if you know who Dr. Phil
Yeah.
is, um, and Republican political figures, the governor of Texas, for example. And so I'm told that my file is literally on his desk. It's just a question of whether he signs it or not. And
Right.
every day I wake up and I say, I hope today's the day.
We'll
So
say a prayer for you as
fingers
well over
crossed.
here.
Thank you
Before
so
we
much.
end, I'm glad you brought up Tucker Carlson because I was going through his documentary series. I saw you there too.
Ah, yes.
He ended the series by asking a sort of predicate question or just a fundamental question about the towers that went down and the eventual war on terror, the trillions spent. He asked which countries benefited in the end.
Yes.
You've seen it all. You lived those years. What's your guess?
Almost no countries benefited. Israel benefited. Um, but a lot of individuals became very, very wealthy
Hmm.
because of the so-called war on terror. We spent more than $1 trillion. We killed as many as 2 million people. And the ones who benefited were the defense contractors and the intelligence contractors, the Eric Princes of the world, and the people at the top of organizations like Blackwater, or the defense manufacturers, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing. They all got rich.
Right.
But we're no safer now than we were on September 10th, 2001.
Hmm.
And we've lost freedoms and civil liberties here in the United States.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure anybody really benefited except for those who provided hardware and services.
Hmm.
They all got very rich.
May I add one thing? I feel that Pakistani
Please.
terror groups with an eye towards
Yeah.
India, they
Yes.
benefited because a lot
Sure.
of those American defense contractor monies, that defense parts were all turned towards
Well,
India.
and I'll add something. We paid tens of millions of dollars in cash as rewards to the Pakistani intelligence service. And God knows what they did with that money.